Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you guys. So today we're going to be taking a look at Adventure Tenyi. These are technically going to be the first games with this build that are actually going to be in the new format. We did cover this build at the very beginning of the format, or rather the very beginning of the season, which I guess was also the very beginning of the format, to be fair. But those games were with pre-ban list, just testing out this new post-ban list build here, which really is not much different from our old build. It really just has one less Crossout Designator. Now, I have actually, definitely been taking a look at the comments from that video since the last time, and these games that we're about to see were played before that video came out, or at least I think before I had seen those comments in any case. So I definitely do plan on taking some of those changes kind of to heart. Particularly, a lot of people suggested the second Wandering Gryphon Rider, which I actually really like that idea. Not just like that idea, I mean, I know that's a very viable option that I see in a lot of the builds. And particularly, I think a lot of people brought up a good point that it makes it easier to make the Galaxy Tomahawk, which I definitely agree with. And that could definitely unbrick a lot of hands that could potentially break if you were to open, like, Ashuna plus Vishuda or something like that, It's definitely not feasible to go into number 42 with those two, but then the Wandering Gryphon Rider being the quick effect is what allows you to very easily get two level 7 monsters on the board, which lets you go into the Tomahawk, which of course is another route to Auroradon. As far as this build itself, I still think it's solid. I definitely still like it. There are definitely other options, other ways that you can build the deck, like including, for example, the second Wandering Gryphon Rider, and then also things like Swordsoul Blackout is another option. Taking out the Longyuan is something that I've talked a lot about and that I've seen a lot of suggestions, and it is definitely, it's one of those things that I'm still very, very borderline on. I do plan on testing a build without it. That'll be the same iteration that I test wherein we use a second Wandering Gryphon Rider. I might shake up the build a little bit more than that too. It might even be its own separate build. I might just have two different iterations of Adventure Tenyi that I'm playing around with, because I do still like this build as a whole, and I do even still like Longyuan. I like having the option to go into a Baron early, or to pivot into a Chenging if things don't necessarily go to plan. It's not an option that's necessarily always present. It's not even necessarily one that's always feasible, but it comes up often enough, honestly, that I do notice it putting in significant work in the deck. That said, it's still not a necessary or even vital tool. I'm definitely more than willing to acknowledge that. And there are times where it does end up leading to more of a bricked hand. That's kind of rare, honestly. It's more often that opening this card will allow you to do things you normally wouldn't be able to do, I find. But there are still some times where it's not necessarily the best thing to open. Let's see here. Now just take a look at the rest of the build. Like I said, it hasn't changed really. I'm still a fan of using both 2 Chiwen and 2 Mecha Fanabesto Lion. I struggle to say that it's necessary, because technically it's not, but I do think it's optimal to be playing 2 of each of these cards. It might seem like it's taking up unnecessary space in the main deck, but one, we need to be pulling these cards from the deck in order to actually do our full combo, and that's kind of the whole reason to be playing the deck too, right, is to end on that board with all the negates. And on top of that, it's not even necessarily bad to open with these. These might seem like bricks because they're combo pieces you pull from the deck, but they're both tuners, and anything that's a tuner is a easy potential combo piece. You can special any number of things that can be special summoned here, like an adventure token or a Tenyi monster, right? Or opening a water enchantress will lead you to that. Opening a foolish will lead you to that. You can maybe even special a rose monster with a basal rose shoot. But I guess those are also tuners. But long story short, being a tuner is an inherent part of being a combo piece in this deck. All roads lead to Halki-Fibrax, like I like to say. So yeah, with there not being too much else different from the build, I don't know that there's anything else rather that I have to necessarily go over with. So we've got quite actually a few pretty solid games here to take a look at today. So let's go ahead and break down the list card by card here, and then go straight into those games. So we are playing 2 Chiwen, Light of the Zing, 1 Jet Synchron, 1 Tenyi Spirit Adhara, 3 Maxx, 2 Mecha Fanabesto Lion, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Roxrose Dragon, 1 Roxrose Dragon, 2 Water Enchantress of the Temple, 1 Swordsoul of Taia, 1 Swordsoul Strategist Longyuan, 3 Tenyi Spirit Vishuda, 3 Tenyi Spirit Ashuna, 1 Wandering Gryphon Rider, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Archnemesis Protos, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Swordsoul Emergence, 2 Rite of Aramesir, 1 Dracoback, the Rideable Dragon, 1 Fateful Adventure, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 1 Basal Rose Shoot, 1 Infinite Impermanence, and then 1 9 Pillars of the Yang Zing. Extra deck is going to have 1 Herald of the Arclight, 1 Denglong First of the Yang Zing, 1 Yazi Evil of the Yang Zing, 1 Baxia Brightness of the Yang Zing, 1 Borlode Savage Dragon, 1 Swordsoul Grandmaster Chi Xiao, 1 Chao Fang Phantom of the Yang Zing, 1 Baron de Fleur, 1 Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Cheng Ying, 1 number 42 Galaxy Tomahawk, 1 Salmon Great Almirage, 1 Monk of the Tenyi, 1 Crystron Helki Fibrax, 1 Barricade Borg Blocker, and then finally 1 Mecha Phantombeast Aurorodon. So yeah, now that we have taken a look at the list here, let's go straight into some games. Alright, so our first duel here is going to be against good old Floowandereeze, which I think is everybody's favorite matchup. Well, yeah, probably maybe second favorite matchup to Adventure Tenyi. Alright, let's see here. So, no, we open a decent enough hand here. We are going second, but opening the C in the Imperm is definitely pretty solid. Of course, you know, the Dimension Shifter coming down is going to make the C a little bit less relevant, but fortunately, the Dimension Shifter is all the opponent has. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, that is going to throw, you know, obviously a brick in our plans. Throw a brick in our plans here. Great. Throw a wrench in our plans, rather. And yeah, it's going to prevent us from doing anything that even resembles a full combo. But that doesn't mean we don't have... Oops, sorry, bumped the mic there. Doesn't mean we don't have plays here. We're going to definitely still get the Wandering Gryphon Rider out for some additional damage. And then the Longyuan, unfortunately, will not burn because it did not, you know, go to the graveyard. But wouldn't have had lethal necessarily anyway. So getting the Baron online for the Omni Negate, along with the Imperm, is going to be very important here. They are going to have the Imperm for the Baron, but also because they Dimensional Shifted, I'm like just, you know, very, very confident that's just going to be Floowandereeze. So that's one of the reasons I want to go for the Baron here, in addition to the Imperm. So I was intending on using the Baron to hit like a call by, or not a call by necessarily, a Crossout Designator that could potentially hit the Imperm there, but it ended up eating an Imperm. Let's say that 5 times fast. Instead, actually ended up eating 2 right here. So that's definitely not a problem, though, that this Baron ate 2 Imperms, because not only did that, you know, take 2 forms of disruption, those forms of disruption haven't even necessarily, like, answered the card, right? Like, the Baron is still very much a threat here, so they are actually teching an Icarus attack, which is, I don't think something that Floowandereeze normally does. I definitely don't normally see it from Floowandereeze here, but so it would have behooved me to actually, you know, do this Taia play during main phase 1. I ultimately decided not to do it, just to, you know, I guess kind of play it on the safe side, right? Just kind of go for lethal while I thought I had it on the board. I don't know. I should have thought about it a little bit more. I guess, I don't know, even if I don't know how much I could have thought about it and then anticipated Icarus attack of all things, though, so yeah, with the Taia, my priority is definitely to make a Chi Xiao here. Just need that monster effect negation to counter the Floowandereeze monsters. This Book of Moon definitely worries me a little bit because, you know, obviously I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to activate the Chi Xiao effect and they're going to book their own Floowandereeze here, and then they're not going to be able to, or rather they are going to be able to resolve their effect. So that is in fact what happens here. That said, I'm still at 8,000, and yeah, I've got the Chi Xiao on board. Between that and the Protos, I'm not like too concerned. I actually, funnily enough, if my opponent ends up with only wind monsters, could potentially even summon Protos, call wind, blow up their whole board, and then normal the Maxx C for lethal. We'll have to see if that ends up happening here. I actually don't remember, honestly. It's been a few days since these games were recorded, so yeah, looks like that actually is probably going to end up what happens here. So they put back the Chi Xiao, smack us for 2,800. Like I said, Floowandereeze, I'm at 8,000. I'm not really worried about them, you know, gaming me that easily. So looks like we're going to lead with the Ashuna here. Send that away for the Monk. Is that to get the 3rd attribute? I'm trying to remember because I think we have, yeah, okay, that was the 3rd attribute there. Or no, sorry, the Maxx C was the 3rd attribute. And then we can summon the Protos, call wind, go to battle phase, smack our opponent for 35, and get a nice lethal there. So, yeah, the Floowandereeze player definitely bricked a bit, but the Dimensional Shifter also, you know, in turn caused us to not be able to make an, you know, optimal or regular turn 1 board. But as long as you can, like, basically know what needs to be done against the deck. You don't necessarily have to. I guess what I mean by that is like, you know, I knew that against Floowandereeze, getting the monster effect negation is the most important part, right? That's why I set up the Baron with the Imperm and then the Chi Shao later. So like, I don't necessarily feel the need to fully combo to win against Floowandereeze in situations like this, as long as we can just prepare for what they're able to do. And you can kind of do that for decks in general, especially if you are more familiar with that matchup. So, all right, let's go ahead and take a look at the next game. So this deck is against, excuse me, jeez. I ended up coughing there when I laughed there. So yeah, anyway, this deck is going to be some kind of like a 60 card stall burn deck. Not like the thing you normally come across when you're playing Master. Not this format anyway. It's not like, you know, this isn't the TCG where like Mystic Mind Burn is apparently winning a bunch of events. I saw that earlier today. It's like, you know, see what you know, I've seen this on Master Duel, the subreddit a lot too. The sentiment of like, say what you will about Maxx C, but at least we don't have Mystic Mind. Anyway, so no, okay. You know what I was gonna say? There's like, okay, maybe a bit of a hot take. I'm not really that bothered by Maxx C, honestly. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's fine. I think that's a little bit like, yeah, maybe Maxx C shouldn't be like at 3, but like it's not a deal breaker for me. I'll just put it that way. So anyway, we're able to go for a pretty standard Hulk combo here. Definitely doing our plays beforehand to bait out the Ash there. One of the nice things about this deck is that it's pretty easy to use your initial setup play to kind of bait out a negate or an Ash, or you know, even just probe for a C. But baiting out the negate is particularly good because, again, as always as ever, as long as we have like a tuner and any other monster, we can go into a Hulk and we can make plays. So that leaves a lot of room for, again, like using your initial cards to like kind of bait out negates. And even if your monster gets like negated, again, as long as you can get multiple monsters on the board, then you're usually gonna be good to go there. So this is not going to lead to necessarily like the full version of the combo here, because we did have to use the Jet Synchron early on. Because of that, we're not able to then bring it back to sack with the Auroradon, which basically means we have one less token available to us. So what I'm going to kind of do here is go through the play in a little bit of a unique way, because I also have the Taia in hand, so that will also prevent me from doing the full combo there. What I can do, however, is I can, as you saw, normal summon the Red Rose, use it to sync with the Herald there, and then I can use the Baron's effect to pop the Yazi. Again, I won't be able to get the Taia, but in junction with the Roxrose that I got, as well as the Chiwen, I've now still got multiple options to synchro summon there. So, you know, this deck does have some fairly rigid or like quote-unquote standard combo lines that you can follow, but it's one of those decks that also very much pays to think outside the box. Like here, now I'm going to go for the Chengyi here by searching the Longyuan, which this is like a very niche situation in which you would want Longyuan. I wouldn't use this as a reason to have Longyuan in the deck necessarily. I think more of a reason to have it in the deck is to make a Baron early. Now, one thing this I guess kind of weird combo line ended up doing was leaving me unable to use the 9 pillars here, but it hardly matters as I end up getting raw sphere moded anyway. So yeah, that's definitely a bit of a pain to say the very least, but it's not the end of the world here, right? It's definitely not the end of the game for sure. So even this Foolish, or this Water Enchantress getting hit with the call by off the Foolish is like, yeah, you know, it sucks, but it's fine. Because really, what it comes down to is like, you can't necessarily always get frustrated that your stuff is just getting negated constantly. You also have to be mindful of like what your opponent is doing. So like here in this scenario, like, yeah, this is not like an ideal spot at all to be in, but like the opponent isn't really doing anything here. So I'm not like super concerned. I figure at the pace the game is currently going, like I'll inevitably draw like some kind of an out, right? And if they want to Ash, like, you know, this like Fateful Adventure here, I'm totally okay with that. You know, I can always just search again next turn. And again, at the pace my opponent is playing right now, they're not really posing any threat to me. It's like, I talk about this a lot when I go over Eldritch matchups, right? When I talk about how like the floodgates are scary, yes, but they're not the scariest part necessarily. Oftentimes it is the Eldritch itself in junction with the floodgates, because if your opponent only has floodgates, you're just going to be able to smack them with your monsters, right? So And that's why I kind of tend to think like it's not necessarily so bad. So I actually did misplay here. I definitely should have impermed this Hulk. I thought my opponent was going to go for an Auroradon combo, but they ended up going for a Selene instead. Now I am going to imperm that, but of course, you know, my opponent still has the means to go into access mode, or access code rather, available to them here. So, you know, in a perfect world, we definitely would have negated the Hulk so that our opponent can go into access code whatsoever. But at the very least, access code isn't necessarily lethal here. Now, I didn't actually know at this point because I don't think they've played anything really burn related, but I didn't know my opponent was playing burn cards at this point, so that could have been a little bit more scary. But we also did have the Nibiru here, and access code did just happen to be summon number 5, so we also got a little bit lucky in that regard. And the opponent concedes at this point, so it doesn't seem like either of their back rows were particularly alive. So a bit of an unconventional game against a bit of an unconventional deck, but we end up pulling through. And again, just, you know, even at that point where we only had like the 2 Rose Dragons and we're just like trying to wait till we top decking out, like it might have seemed like a scary position to be in, but like honestly at the time and looking back, it's like, yeah, I think we still had like more or less control of the game even at that point. So all right, let's go and take a look at the next duel. All right, this one's going to be against the NUMERONs. We're kind of playing against all like the Boogeyman deck, I feel like, in this video, right? We got like the Burn deck, the NUMERON, and then the Fluanderies. You know, all we're missing is Eldelich, right? So, all right, we've got the first turn here with the Ashuna and the Adventure line. So I don't believe this is really much of a combo here. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is, of course, the Galaxy Tomahawk combo. What am I saying here? My brain was looking for a tuner and didn't see when it was like no combo, but it's like, no, duh, of course we're playing Wandering Gryphon Rider, more or less the Adventure line. Kind of, this is one of the reasons we're doing it, but also because it's just generally good. What I meant to say is that this is one of the reasons you would want to play multiple Wandering Gryphon Riders, is to enable this particular line wherein we overlay the Ashuna and the Gryphon Rider in order to go into the number 42 Galaxy Tomahawk. That's going to let us, you know, of course, detach with materials and summon as many tokens as possible to our board. And because they're all machines, we can link 3 of them away in order to go into the Auroradon, because good old Auroradon, well, I guess, okay, to be fair, that makes sense. I was going to say, good old Auroradon, of course, you can make it with tokens, but to be fair, you know, Mecha Fanabeast is a token-based archetype, so I guess I can't fault them for that particular design flaw in Auroradon, but yeah, you know, maybe summoning 3 tokens is just a bit much on top of being able to summon arguably one of the better tuners in general in the game from the deck, so, but what can you do, right? In any case here, yeah, we're able to go for again, just a standard number 42 Galaxy Tomahawk combo, which is going to lead to a full combo line without having the need to go into Halki Fibrex. If you're curious about how these combo lines work, definitely feel free to go down to the description. If you check there, you will find a link to this deck's combo guide, which does go over, you know, this particular combo, as well as a few others as well that are pretty standard for the deck. But a lot of the time it comes down to getting Baron and Yazi out, like we're seeing here. If you can summon Baron plus Yazi, then you can use Baron to blow up the Yazi and then summon the Taia and also get your Chiwen back. So, that's a lot of the ways. It's kind of like, I kind of like to think of combos in sections, right? That makes them easier to remember for me. So like the Adventure Tenyi combos, I kind of split into 2 halves. The first half is getting to the point where you have Baron plus Yazi on board, and then of course you use Baron's effect to blow up the Yazi to get the Taia, and then you can just remember the second half of the combo from there. Again, that's for me personally, that makes it easier to remember the combo lines by doing that. So. Alright, so we've got the Chi Shao on board, setting up the Emergence there, just going to let us get the Protos. And then Baxia, of course, we're going to use that to set up the Chao Feng by getting back the Adhara that we ended up sending with the Taia there. It's cool, it's just, it's the thing I love about Adventure Tenyi is that all the different effects are just all these like different moving pieces that are constantly like feeding into each other. I guess I find that fascinating about Yu-Gi-Oh combos like in general, as opposed to like other card games, kind of like Magic, where the combos are like not necessarily always more obvious, but it's very much like, you know, okay, you play these 2 cards in junction and they create this kind of like effect. But like combos in Yu-Gi-Oh are just so much like this leads to this, leads to this, leads to this, leads to this, and this. I don't know. It's cool to follow. It's like a It's almost like I'm thinking of that It's Always Sunny meme with Charlie and the you know the one with the strings and all that fun stuff. So Proto's got a Feather Duster plus a Droplet here. That's definitely going to be a bit of a yikes, but they've only got 2 resources left, cards in hand afterward, and they didn't hit the Chi Shao. They are going to hit us with the Raigeki though, which is going to hit the Chi Shao here. But thank God they actually did not have the follow-up to that. Now, again, they cleared our whole board, but they actually didn't have the NUMERON network here. So from there, we're able to summon the Taia. And you might be wondering, like, okay, you've used your full combo line. You don't have, like, anything else left. What are you going to do? We do actually still have this Boarload Savage Dragon in the extra deck. That can equip the Auroradon to get multiple Omni Negates, and also with 4050 attack, we threaten lethal over 2 turns with our opponent here. 2 turns being this one, of course, and then our next turn. So really our opponent has 1 more turn in order to draw an out. And they only have 1 card in hand, so it's going to have to be a card they top deck. And even if they draw the out, they don't necessarily have the means to... Yeah, they just have to concede here because they don't necessarily have the means to out our Boarload Savage Dragon and also have a follow-up play. If they happen to have something, like, if they had exactly Imperm plus Network, then yeah, that would have really sucked because they would have had lethal there. But I guess what I'm getting at is that they would have had a very specific combination of cards to have actually made it through the Boarload there. So cool. All right, now that we have wrapped up this one, let's go and take a look at the next game. So this next duel is going to be against Adventure Phantom Knights, which is actually a deck I do plan on covering, although given the timing of things, it won't end up being until after the new branded support has come out. I already have those games recorded, but they're going to be like pre-branded pack, whatever it's called, something of Dragons game. So just, I guess, a fair warning for when that video comes out. But in any case here, I'm going to leave with the Jet Synchron line here as I open with that and Chiwen and Red Rose. Opponent's got a Maxi, but fortunately we did open the Ash. We've also got a Maxi of our own as well. So even though we have to go for the singular kind of Jet Synchron line, which is not a full combo, it's only going to end on Baron plus, well, I say only, but Baron plus Xiao Fang plus 9 pillars is still pretty good. And we've got this Maxi in our hand too, so... Now here I actually technically should have discarded the Red Rose Dragon, I think. I'm pretty sure I should have, because there's a world where like I maybe could have thought about summoning a Chi Shao instead of the Xiao Fang, and then I could have searched the Longyuan and set up a Cheng Ying in addition to again the Chi Shao there. But ultimately, I think this was the better combo line anyway, to go for the Xiao Fang plus 9 pillars, because that actually lets us make use of the 9 pillars. And, 9 pillars is actually, more than just another Omni Negate. It's also a counter trap. So, like, there are not a whole lot of things, well, really only other counter traps can be activated in response to it. But, yeah, just because of the nature of being a counter trap, it does make a very, very powerful negate. As well as being a mostly Omni Negate. It's not quite an Omni Negate. There are some things that the 9 pillars is not able to hit, something like I think Baron could. But yeah, I think that's better than going for like, because the alternative was to go for, instead of the Xiao Fang plus 9 pillars, would be to go for like Chi Shao plus Protos, or I'm trying to think what else. Potentially Chi Shao plus Cheng Ying, like I said, like I mentioned earlier. But no, I think having the negate set up, plus Xiao Fang, of course, is in and of itself, like, obviously a very good, just like negation tool in general. So opponent activates the Forbidden Droplet, discarding the Break Sword. Great discard here, because actually I would have loved to have used the 9 pillars on this Forbidden Droplet, but I'm not able to, so I'm gonna have to use the Baron instead. Even if they would have hit the Baron with the Droplet anyway, yes, I maybe could have saved Baron's negate here, but I also just didn't like the idea of Baron being at 1500 attack and just being so easy to run over, right? I ideally would like her to survive through the next turn if possible, so I'm going to use the Ash here to stop the Fateful Adventure from getting the Dracoback to, just bounce our stuff back willy-nilly. They do take this opportunity to go into the Cherubini here, so I did kind of consider, let's see, no, I'm thinking something else, sorry. I was going to say I kind of considered using the 9 pillars on the Cherubini effect here, but of course that is a send for cost, so not necessary to do that. So they actually ended up bringing back our Jet Synchron, which I thought was kind of interesting here. I made note of this in my head. I was like, okay, if I actually end up surviving to the next turn, I'm going to get to use Jet Synchron again. So, you know, that's pretty rad. And let me see something real quick. Okay, so they already used the Fog Blade. Alright, now here I'm going to end up having to use the 9 pillars on the Wandering Gryphon Rider just to, you know, obviously ensure that they don't get an Omni Negate on the board. In case I top deck my Nibiru. I'm basically at this point waiting to see if I top deck Nibiru because I have already used Ash, so even though I'm going to search for Ash with the Chow Fang here, it's not going to really be of much use. I'll throw out this Chiwen here as a potential defender to keep my life points safe again. Still not entirely sure how likely it is I'm going to end up living through this turn, but guess we'll just have to see there. Okay, so from here, it looks like they're going to go into a Nightmare Unicorn and use that card they just added with the Silent Boots to spin my Baron away. Now, they actually ended up sending, or rather adding a Fog Blade, and then they used the Greaves to send the Ancient Cloak here. And then from there, they go into the Access Code, and then, you know, obviously buff it up to 5,300, blow up my last line of defense to Chiwen here. And then go into battle phase. So I do think my opponent threw here a little bit. And by throw, or threw, what I mean is like throwing is another term for when you accidentally miss lethal. So especially because they didn't end up using this Ancient Cloak. Let me just see my opponent's graveyard. I'm trying to think. Okay, wait. Ancient Cloak was sent by the oh, what is it? The gloves, right? But I think what my opponent could have done, because they already used Fog Blade already, right? They used Fog Blade, yeah, earlier this turn. But if my opponent is playing Phantom Knight Wings, they could have added that with the Silent Boots and discarded that. And then the Wings could have brought back the Ancient Cloak, which then could have either attacked itself for lethal or, you know, turned to a defense mode and give it its attack points to Access Code Talker. That would have given me an extra draw, but, you know, I have, I think, over, or rather right at 20 cards in the deck at this point. Yeah, 20 cards exactly in the deck, so that's only a 5% chance to give me the Nibiru. To go for lethal here, I think is absolutely worth it to make that risk there. So I do think my opponent ended up kind of missing the lethal there, but we definitely take those. That's definitely not an issue for us. So all right, from here, yeah, we draw a Maxx, definitely not, you know, not anything important. So I don't know why I ended up using the Foolish for the Enchantress here. I think I forgot I already had a Rite of Aramesir in my hand, but we'll definitely lead with that. We've also got the Dracoback as well, so still good, of course, to get the Fateful Adventure. That way we can set up the Gryphon Rider for ourselves going into our... Just having that up going into our play is going to make me feel a lot better, even though our opponent can't really do anything particular to stop us. I mean, they do have the Fog Blade to potentially bring something back as like a defender, but okay, yeah, just special summon in either position. I was trying to see if it would special summon in attack or defense mode. So, and of course I'm going to special the Ashuna here, or the Adhara. I don't have any particular plans for it with this hand, but it's definitely better to have it on the board, and, you know, better to have it not needed than to not have it. So yeah, from here I'll use Cheng Ying to kind of help pick apart our opponent's board here. Using the Dracoback to put back the access code, and then I'll go for the call by. I definitely should have thought more about like saving the call by here, and maybe trying to use Cheng Ying's effect in a different way, or like banish something in order to trigger Cheng Ying's effect in a different way. But we'll definitely take our free Maxx draw here. It's something really, you know, great, obviously, but we definitely still take that. And of course we take the banishes as well. From there we can bounce the token with Vishuda, and then the opponent concedes, because obviously we've got 8,000 damage on board already, and we didn't really have to do any like necessarily too crazy things. Just again had to make an adventure board and then a Cheng Ying that got a lot of cards banished, so we definitely love to see it. Alright, so I think that's going to go ahead and do it for the games. Let's go ahead and move on now to the outro. Alright everybody, I want to thank you very much for watching, especially all the way to the very end like this. That does mean a lot to me, not only personally, but also as a means of supporting the channel. Same goes to those of you who are commenting and or subscribing. Again, just means a lot to me, and is also great ways to support the channel. Like I said, there are updates to this build coming. I just haven't gotten the chance to actually, again, I think I'm actually might even make an entirely separate build. It might not even be too many cards off, but I think that'll be better just so I can have a better means of comparing the two different Adventure Tenyi builds that I have in mind. And then, of course, we also have, as I mentioned or touched on before, the new pack coming out tomorrow, I believe, as of the time that I am recording this. So we'll cover those, and then we'll go into another update with Adventure Tenyi here. But yeah, like I said, that's going to go ahead and do it for this one. So without further ado, this is XLex. I'm signing out, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day.